So, ladies and gentlemen, why would you do an Elvis movie where Elvis doesn't sing in the movie? Well, Elvis was trying a little bit of different tact by the late 1960s. And this movie, which is kind of what they call a beach style, a lot of women, a lot of gray times, it's called Live a Little, Love a Little. This American musical comedy film starred Elvis, directed by Norman Turog, who had directed several previous Presley films. This would be his final film as he went blind shortly after production ended. Presley shares the screen with fellow legendary singing idol Rudy Vallee, whose career dated to the 1920s, but Vallee and his late singers, the 60s, did not sing in the film. The film introduced the song A Little Less Conversation, on an alternate take of which would form the basis of a remix that returned Presley to international music sales charts in 2002. Now, Greg Nolan, who played by Presley, is a newspaper photographer who lives in a carefree life until he encounters an eccentric, lovelorn woman named Bernice on the beach. Bernice assumes different names and personalities wherever the mood hits her. She introduces herself to Greg as Alice, but she's known to the grocery delivery boy as Susie and as the milkman as Betty. After having her Great Dane dog Albert chase Greg into the water when he insults her after a kiss, Bernice invites him to stay at her beachfront home. Bernice later causes Greg to get fired from his job and gets evicted from his apartment after drugging him, which leaves him in deep sleep for days. However, Bernice manages to find Greg another home. Greg wants to repay her, so he procures two full-time photographer jobs, one for a Playboy-like magazine owned by Mike Lansdowne, and the other for a very conservative advertising film co-owned by Mr. Penlow. The two jobs are in the same building, forcing Greg to run from one to another without being detected. Greg also deals with Bernice in her eccentric ways and finally realizes he has fallen in love. Now, his MGM movie is based on the novel Kiss My Firm by Flying Lips by Dan Greenberg, produced by Douglas Lawrence with a screenplay by Michael A. Hoey and, of course, Dan Greenberg, with Dick Sargent in a supporting role. Billy Strange did the music, released 90 minutes, October 23rd, 68, 3.6 million budget with 8.1 million on the revenue. And, of course, Sterling Holloway plays a guest part as a milkman. Now, based on the 65 novel Kiss My Firm by Flying Lips by Dan Greenberg, and with a screenplay co-written by him, Live a Little, Love a Little was a departure from the standard Presley films of the period. It had a more mature tone than other Presley musicals, with strong languages, drug references, and implied sexual encounter. Presley was paid $850,000 plus 50% of the profits. Elvis also did all of his own stunts in the film, including the high-speed driving and stunt work in a dune buggy during the film's opening scene. This has been compared to a similar scene involving Steve McQueen in the film The Thomas Crown Affair, which was released at the same time as this movie. Elvis also choreographed the film's fight scenes with intention in displaying his karate skills. The fight in the newspaper pressing plant is also thought to have been an influence on a fight scene in a newspaper pressing plant in the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies, perhaps because the production knew how big of a fan Elvis was of James Bond. Unlike many previous films that involved location scenes shot against a backdrop, he appeared in more real location scenes than usual in this film. Scenes were filmed in and around Hollywood, along the Malibu coast, at Marineland and the LA Music Center. The movie also featured Presley's father Vernon in an uncredited cameo. Several of Presley's Memphis Mafia films showed up, such as Red West and Joe Esposito. Released on October 23rd, 68, the film failed to impress most critics. With a very poor performance on its American release, the film was not released in many regions, including the UK. Retrospectively, this film has become a cult favorite, with a standout song, A Little Less Conversation, becoming a smash hit and worldwide number one in 2001. Live a Little, Love a Little was also considered the first true postmodern screwball comedy. Also, Michelle Carey's character is similar to what became known as the Manic Pixie Dreamgirl in contemporary cinema. Now, this was the second of Presley's 5 final movies in the 60s, including just a handful of musical numbers. Recording session of the 4 songs written for the film took place at Western Recorders in Hollywood on March 7, 68. The producer and nominal charge of the session, Billy Strange, was attuned to current trends in pop music and brought in a group of musicians outside of Presley's usual stable, offering written arrangements that strayed from Presley's usual sound. Almost in Love was co-written by Brazilian bossa nova great Luiz Bonfá, and has the undeniable groove of the samba and jazz blended style sweeping the world at the time. Edge of Reality was a piece of pseudo-acid rock A Little Less Conversation, written by Strange and a new Discovery Mac Davis, bordered on funk. Now, only 4 cuts from this movie, including Wonderful World, Edge of Reality, A Little Less Conversation, and Almost in Love. Now, it was also released as a single, A Little Less Conversation, only number 69 on the charts. Over 3 decades later, the remix became a global #1 hit. The version sourced for remix was initially believed to be a later re-recording made for the Presley 68 comeback special, and not the movie version. However, when the Love a Little soundtrack tapes were rediscovered in the vaults, Edge of Reality appeared on the November 8, 68 B-side of If I Can Dream, the song used to close out the 68 Christmas special. Wonderful World, which played over the opening credits in the film, appeared on the compilation Elvis Sings Flaming Star. Now, according to personnel, a lot of players with, of course, Levan, Casey, and Brits on electric guitar. Variety called the film one of Presley's dimmest vehicles, writing that Torog's direction tried to give some lilt to proceedings. Nothing, however, can buck that writing. Songs are dull, physical values are standard, and mediocrity prevails. However, Kevin Thomas of the LA Times called the film a pleasant Presley picture, as rather more sophisticated than the durable singing star's 27 prior efforts. Now, according to the monthly film Bulletin, they reviewed the film in '78, wrote that it attempts to create a more eccentric, sophisticated setting for Presley than before, but that it fails to achieve that kind of convention vital to a screwball romantic comedy, and the songs were unmemorable, but shows what they do. Released on Warner in 2007 as a Regional 1 widescreen DVD. If you can find it, it's quite good. So, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis at this time was in transition because he wasn't sure what the future is going to behold, and he turned down a lot of roles. He was considered for True Grit. He was considered for Godfather. He was considered for Star is Born. He should have took those roles. Elvis was a good actor. And according to one of his co-stars, this is what she said. We're hearing from right now Celeste Yarnell, who played Ellen, recalled making the film. I adored Elvis. When I met him for the first time, he immediately put me at ease. We had to film our kissing first, and neither of us heard the director say cut. For me, it was love at first kiss. We became very good friends. He was warm and kind and full of love. He had this tremendous desire to please people. We watched the funeral of Martin Luther King Jr. together over lunch in the trailer, and he cried. He really cared deeply. He was far more handsome in person with deep blue eyes and a Roman profile. He held jam sessions on the set. He would play cars with George Barris or play football with the boys who traveled with him everywhere. He was truly the king. So again, Elvis, even by late '68, he was still Elvis. But like I said, the drugs and the traveling and all that and the change of life got up to him. But this is really interesting because I saw this movie first in French. And in French, it's a lot more interesting in English. The French translations of the Elvis movies, like the Québécois or France dub, were quite good. So Live a Little, Love a Little. Like I said, 3 stars out of 4. And I think basically the Screwball comedy of Live a Little, Love a Little stands up. And Elvis, not say it was his best movie, but it was a pretty good effort, and I enjoyed it. So if you like what you're doing here with Elvis Podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.